here in New York. We're going on a trip out west now to Manitoba and British Columbia, and let's start with the trade environment and the economic environment, and talk about what are the things that the governments of Manitoba and BC are doing to strengthen their competitiveness in this moment. And Sam, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much, Derek. I'm happy to participate virtually here, and I'm very sorry that I wasn't able to attend this year in person. Certainly, in relation to trade, it's a critically important item for the province of British Columbia. Diversification is going to be of paramount importance. We're very fortunate. A very modest percentage of our exports are going to the United States, so we've long enjoyed solid trading relationships with Asia, China, but there's efforts now that the government is undertaking to expand upon the trade and diversification to other areas in Asia, such as South Korea, Japan, and this is also going to be accomplished through the feet on the ground and trade offices that we have in the various continents. And so with the focus on that, I think we're positioned well to continue to grow the economy over the medium and the long term.
Nicoleta.
Yep, thank you for having us here, and thank you to National and Bloomberg for organizing this this conference. Just picking up on Sam's point on diversification, trade corridors. Manitoba, from a geographic location, we're in the heart of North America. So we have access to markets in Canada, coast to coast, US, and Mexico. So from a logistics distribution perspective, this is an asset for us. And a key asset is Centreport Canada. This is the largest inland trimodal port that has integrated rail, road, and air transportations, which allows for from a supply chain operations, makes Manitoba very, very competitive. And then there is the port of Churchill. Like, we're talking about diversifying trade partners and trade corridors. The port of Churchill is the only deep water Arctic port with access to the Canadian National Railway. And it's also the only port in close proximity to Europe. So the port is seen as a strategic asset for Manitoba, but it's also been recognized by Prime Minister Carney as a strategic asset for Canada as a whole when it comes to trade diversification.
It seems like a good moment to talk, I guess, more broadly about infrastructure. You mentioned a couple of really important points that make Manitoba's economy actually one of the most resilient economies in Canada. I think, relatively stable. What are some of the, and there's tons of talk, as we've heard earlier today, out of Ottawa about the need to invest in infrastructure. What are the Manitoba government's priorities? How do they sort of lay out over the next number of years in terms of infrastructure investment?
Yeah, so the theme for this year budget was Building One Manitoba. And the centerpiece of the budget is a $3.7 billion strategic infrastructure plan. This is the largest investment, capital investments in Manitoba. And the focus is on growing the economy, improving healthcare in Manitoba, education, housing. There's some investments when it comes to Manitoba Hydro. So I talked about the Port of Churchill, Centreport, included in that infrastructure budget or investments related to infrastructure is investments Centreport and investments in the port of Churchill. There's investments that are allocated towards stabilizing the rail line that goes all the way to the port of Churchill. Investments in building the roads and bridges and building a airport up north. When it comes to building healthcare, there's plans to open an emergency room in South Winnipeg, building personal care homes, and also focus on education and building schools.
Sam, there's also an aggressive building plan, I think, in BC. Tell us a little bit more about some of the highlights.
Yes, happy to. Similar to Manitoba and virtually all of the other provinces, there's going to be a very important focus on build out of capital plans for the usual areas. Healthcare is certainly one of the largest items in our budget, and that will consist of construction and enhancements to some of the hospitals, both located on the mainland in British Columbia, but also on Vancouver Island. Additionally, the build out of the transportation sector is going to be very, very important. And this isn't just sort of preventative capital maintenance projects. We were impacted a couple of years ago with a severe atmospheric river. And as a result of that, many of the certain of the highways and the rail links were out of service for some time. So it's taking proactive actions to build upon and enhance the corridor for transportation. Housing and student housing, as an example, with the universities and college, will also be a priority for the government. And there's been great progress that's been made both in various areas throughout the province, both on Vancouver Island and on the mainland. The partnership that British Columbia will have also with the federal government will be important as well. And this one, with the announcements of the top 5 Building Canada projects, it will be very, very critical for the province to have the supporting infrastructure and allowing us to have the ability to get products to the markets without prolonged disruptions within the supply chain or due to unexpected circumstances due to adverse weather and natural disasters.
All right, let's talk about how you guys are going to finance all this. It's obviously a different borrowing environment than the one we had when we were here at this event a year ago. It's a much steeper yield curve. How are you adjusting your financing plans as a result? Where are you seeing the most value for your taxpayers? And we'll start that one with you, Sam.
Yes, thank you. We've certainly had very elevated borrowing requirements over the past couple of years, and as per our first quarterly update, the trend is going to be continuing. This year we have a revised borrowing number, gross borrowing requirement of just over $35 billion, and I'm very, very pleased to say that we're more than well on our way to completing this program through a combination of our strong domestic issuance program that we have in Canada. The program has been very, very successful. We usually will continue to focus on building liquid benchmark bonds with preferred terms of 10 years and 30 years. But also featuring very, very prominently this year, similar to last year, was our offshore program, where we've had tremendous success in tapping the global capital markets on very, very cost-effective terms. Just in the calendar year of 2025, for example, we've had 3 very successful US dollar global issues for 3-year terms, 5-year terms, and 10-year terms. And it's been underpinned by some very, very effective investor relations activities that we've been involved with, both in Europe and in North America. So I think going forward, we'll again look at the diversification of markets and investors in order to achieve, the greatest cost savings for the taxpayers of the province.
Nicoleta, same question to you. How's the yield curve affect your thinking, and how's your strategy evolving as an issuer?
I mean, for this year, we're planning on borrowing $5.9 billion. That's what we were forecasting at budget. We looked again at these numbers with the first quarter release. Still forecasting to borrow 5.9. That's within our range for the last few years and what we're forecasting out for the next 3 years, which is about between 5.5 billion to 6.5 billion. I mean, the way we approach our borrowing program is that we borrow in the domestic market. We consider that our main market. Issue in 10 and 30 years, build benchmarks in those terms. For us, with the size of our borrowing program, benchmark means 2 billion to 2.5 billion that we look at building on those 2 points of the curve. We also want to remain flexible when it comes to the domestic market and have the ability to pivot, either issuing on the shorter part of the curve. We've done 5 years in the past, and that's because we responded to investor demand. We've also gone longer than 30 years in the domestic markets. Manitoba Hydro, our largest Crown corporation, has longer dated assets, so that term longer than 30 years fits their portfolio really well. We also want to set ourselves in a position where there is flexibility in terms of the markets that we access. We've borrowed as much as 30 to 40% of our borrowing in international markets. Last year was just 40%. U.S. being our primary international markets, we had a very successful 10-year, $1 billion transaction last year in the U.S. We're monitoring that market for issuance this year. Given the size of our program and how we approach international markets, and that we look at where we can find ourselves in the domestic market versus international markets, we're continually monitoring, but we want to keep our presence in the U.S. market. We also have European medium-term note program, and we've used our primary for private placement, and we're seeing significant interest and demand that's reflected to us for European private placement. But what we're working on right now is to increase that program, so gives us the opportunity to look at Euro benchmark transaction. That's something that we could look at in the future. However, given the size of our borrowing program, we won't be able to do both Euro and US at the same time. So we may look at alternating between those currencies. We also are monitoring the Australian market, similar to the other provinces. We had a very successful 600 million Aussie transaction last year. We'll continue to monitor those markets and look at opportunity. And international markets allows us to complement the domestic market, to take pressure off the domestic issuance and reduce the frequency to which we go to the domestic market, and it does help with our cost of funding.
Sam, do you want to speak also as well about how you see the foreign currency issuance strategy evolving for BC?
Yes, and I would also echo just some of the latter points that Nicoleta just mentioned with regards to the benefits that an effective offshore program has had, both when we've returned to the domestic markets and creating some pricing tension in relation to subsequent competitively priced domestic bonds. But in relation to other market opportunities in foreign currencies, we've had a long-standing approach. We would be very diligent in making decisions on the timing of our offshore issuance and looking to obtain a positive, like an arbitrage opportunity. So to be able to issue at a particular term at a lower level after taking into consideration the all-in hedging costs for the deal. We've had success also this year in the Euro markets. It's been we've broken new ground on 2 occasions with a successful 15-year Euro deal, and just recently at the end of September, a 20-year Euro deal. And those ones had a very, very high quality investor book with the great orders that came in from asset managers, pensions, insurance companies, central banks, official institutions, and build out of the of benchmarks within those in between, but very, very key terms, I think is very, very useful rather than sort of the reliance upon shorter terms of 5 years and 10 years. Similar to Manitoba, we've also had success in the past with smaller sized Euro offerings that were done on a private placement basis. However, we much prefer to have those large orders where you have 1 or 2 investors coming into a public format, and we have been able to move some of the longstanding investors that have previously participated in privates into our public deals when we are going into the Euro markets.
Nicoleta, if I can, since you mentioned the Port of Churchill, maybe I could just ask you a quick view on how you see that project evolving, sort of what the next steps are. There's never, in my memory, been so much excitement about what might happen at the Port of Churchill, at least in the national discussion. So what will happen there over the next number of years?
Yeah, I mean, there's funding allocated in the current year's budget to develop the Port of Churchill. The province is working with Arctic Gateway Group. This is owned by 29 First Nations plus Indigenous communities. And the goal with the Port of Churchill is to have it open year-round. Currently, it's open about 4 months out of the year, and it is used to ship things like grain to Europe from that port. So if the port was to be open year-round, which investments are being planned to reach that goal, what it would mean is increasing shipments. Critical minerals it's in demand right now, so that's one thing that could be shipped out of the Port of Churchill's. There's talks of province of Saskatchewan talking about shipping fertilizer, for example, to Europe out of that port. So I feel like the opportunities are endless when it comes to the Port of Churchill's. We just need to make the investments. And since Prime Minister Carney, recognized the Port of Churchill's as a project of national importance, we hope to see that develop in the near future.
And we will have to leave it there. Sam, thank you for joining us from BC. Nicoleta, thank you so much.
Thank you.